It's quite astounding that people within the people who are suffering the political mind virus, like they get addicted to politics. It's a form of mental illness, in my opinion. It's absolutely crazy. But they are willing to say absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. And then they get caught because they say one thing one time, they say the opposite another time. It's just like, whatever. But anyways, yeah, more of that nonsense is going. Will, what's up, brother? Afternoon, y'all. Coffee in hand while turning. Good for you, man. Keep safe and keep the rubber side down. And I'm having what Peter McCormick calls tastes effing awful. He's not a big fan of Tim Hortons coffee for some reason. For those of you who don't see, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But I want to just say good morning, or good afternoon this time. Sorry, I had a couple of meetings this morning, and I had to catch up on some stuff. And I want to welcome you to the Freedom Coffee live stream, where we celebrate the freedoms that we have fought for, and we talk about how we can expand those freedoms in the future. And how do we do that? We do that by gathering around and all getting a cup of our favorite coffee in our favorite mug that says either Honking for Freedom or Don't Be a Chooch. That's diversity Trudeau there, right there. And we get our coffee and we work on getting out of a state of anxiety, relieving our stress, and we come together with ideas. And I do that by turning on the switch. You know what the switch is for me? For me, the switch of positivity is a sip of coffee. So once I go and do that, I feel all the stress and anxiety, a little bit that I have about all the political nonsense I'm dealing with, just runs through my fingers, and now we're good. That's where now everything's amazing. Can't you feel it? I don't know. I do. It's been a good week, but a very, very busy week. You're live on YouTube now. Okay, I guess it's working. I can sympathize. I don't drink coffee either. Well, you'd get along well with the Brits. And Peter's not the first Brit to tell me that. When you know some of you know one of my closest friends is a Brit. But anyways, okay, it's very cold here, as we've learned. It's interesting to be hanging around. It reminds me when my buddy came here for the first time ever to Canada, and we think it's just kind of normal, and we don't understand why people make such a big deal of the cold, but. Yeah, let's just say it's been a little bit of a surprise for them, but it is what it is. Okay, tonight, Not on Record is going to be premiering at 8 o'clock, and a really good, interesting episode because there's two of the young lawyers who joined Joseph's firm are being, for lack of a better term, interrogated. It's quite interesting, though. There is a very interesting Easter egg in that episode. I happen to be there during the recording, so I suggest you watch it. If you're home alone, you're home and you got nothing to do, check out Not on Record tonight at 8 p.m. I'm going to talk a little bit about cartels today. Not what you think. I promise, not what you think. It has nothing to do with Colombia. And that people don't like Tim Hortons. I couldn't believe it. Such vitriol. So for those of you who don't know, because I know a lot of you aren't Bitcoiners, there's a very, very popular Bitcoin podcast called What Bitcoin Did, hosted by Peter McCormick. I've been listening to it since he launched, and he told me it was 2017, which sounds about right for me. And we finally got time to hang out and spend time together and all that sort of stuff. And tonight, what we're going to do, because we're in the middle of doing a bunch of things while he's there with his team in Canada. Tonight, we're going to be doing a hangout. We're going to be doing a hangout in Toronto. So if you are in Toronto and you're willing to bear the brunt of the cold and you want to get out and come hang out with Peter and myself and a few other people, many of whom will be Bitcoiners, of course, go to my Twitter feed. There is a link I created a Telegram channel where I'm just going to post the information and time and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be probably Midtown Toronto. But come hang out, and it's going to be great. We'll just spend some time together. Nice, I have a coffee also. Spiral, it's good to see you, brother. Is yours Tim Hortons coffee? I couldn't believe it. Such vitriol. For those of you who don't know, if you're following my Twitter, go to my Twitter feed where I posted a video of Peter's opinion of Tim Hortons. So I don't think he's going to be a brand manager for Tim Hortons anytime soon, but it is what it is. All right. The more things change, the more things stay the same. So we're seeing a lot of things going on around the world. One thing in particular, the German farmers are being co-opted by the political class, just like they did to the Freedom Convoy. Wow. It's the exact same tactics. It's the exact same process. And it's done by the same people who smeared us in the Ottawa trucker convoy who tried to co-opt us. So it's really interesting how this is all connected. But we'll talk more about this as time goes on. But it was really interesting. I was showing Bridget some pictures from the protest in Germany. And there's one in particular. It's in front of a stadium. And there's all these tractors that are lined up in a stadium field, lined up in a row, like in a perfect row, squared off with another row squared off perfectly. And I showed that to Bridget, and I said, does that look organic to you? And she's like, no, that looks like a military. And I said, isn't that what they were trying to get us to do? Isn't that what, the geniuses that were trying to subvert the convoy were trying to? She's like, yeah. I said, not that it's not organic, I'm sure it is, but they are being co-opted by the same, tangentially, some of the people are the same, but then they find people that they can co-opt in Europe who become mouthpieces, who basically engage in political entryism. They join their movements and start to take it over. And I'm sure if anybody, I don't speak German, if anybody spoke German and looked to people online, they'd probably see a lot of infighting starting, which means they're going to co-opt the German protest and end it very quickly. And that's why things never change. Because what we've exposed during the Freedom Convoy, what we've learned, the reason they are attacking myself and Bridget and a bunch of other people, always trying to smear us, always trying to tell people, oh, don't listen to them, don't listen, because we were right in the center of this global political cartel that acts like a protection racket for the entire political class, not just the WEF. It's the whole political class in various countries. And they'll deploy people, they'll engage, they'll take it over, and they'll end it, which is probably what's going to happen, right? And if they don't listen, then people will get arrested. They'll sacrifice them just like they sacrificed the truckers in Ottawa. And this is why I continue to talk about it, because I don't like to live in the past. I got other things in my life I got to deal with. And we try to talk about some of those things here as well, right? But if people don't understand this racket and how it works, and how the brainwashing is used against you, the collectivist nature of everybody in government. And by the way, don't dismiss that. They're all socialists. I don't care if they're the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. They're all friggin' socialists. They're all collectivists. They all want to suck on the tit of government. All of them. All of them. Especially those who have never had a real job. And the other thing is interesting, and I wonder if people understand this concept. Most politicians are not elected. Did you know that? Did you know that most politicians aren't elected? They're the people who work behind the scenes who actually run the show. So the people that you're, checking off on your piece of paper that's who you're voting for, that is just the mascot now at this point. They're not the ones calling the shot, right? And they don't have enough political capital to invoke change. That's why I tell people, like, when they say, oh, I want to meet with this representative, maybe he or she will listen to me. And I'm like, no, they won't listen to you, because there's an entire infrastructure that's built around lobbyists and strategic management firms and consulting firms that they're deciding what the politician's opinions are. And if the politician doesn't have that opinion, then they will be disqualified or removed from office. That's how it works behind the scenes. And the people who run those rackets, they're politicians. They just never go on a ballot. Sometimes you'll have some of them who had been in office at some point, but it's really important to understand this, that most of your politicians are not elected. They've never been elected, but they're running the racket of the uniparty and the political parties themselves. The people who do the kingmakers, as we discussed, we call them in politics. And then you have like kind of, I call them your rugrats, like your middle management losers that are obsessed with politics. Like it's the only thing they can think of. They can't look at anybody in life unless it's through the political lenses of conservative, liberal, whatever. That's the only way they can view the world. It's the most anti-intellectual way to view the world. They're really quite dumb and quite pathetic, which is why most of them are drug addicts and alcoholics. But that's another issue. Anyways, so this political cartel seems to grow. The political cartel that we encountered in Ottawa that sold us out, that we are going to continue talking about, and discovery in court will be fascinating. I promise you, it'll be fascinating. But so what's going to happen with the German protest is you will start to soon see, if you haven't seen it yet, you'll start to see somebody who is clearly a scripted politician. They'll probably grab somebody who has military experience if they can. They'll use a veteran if possible, or somebody in policing, law enforcement, because they live in this world of just letters, and their version of credibility is, oh, they're in the military or in law enforcement, and they'll put that person on camera to do some sort of scripted legacy media interview. He'll do all the talking points, and that will be it. And it's going to be very, like when I spoke at the Freedom Convoy, I don't think anybody will disagree that I was very, very effective. That peace, love, unity, freedom, the way I sold it, the way I did the interviews, was extremely effective. But you'll probably notice that there's a difference. It'll seem a lot more scripted. It'll seem a little plastica, and that is going to be, and there's going to be many tells in there as well. What they'll do is they'll say, oh, it's one political party, and they'll ignore the corruption of the other political parties. They'll just focus on, sometimes they just focus on one individual, right? Because, of course, we all live in dictatorships now. Everything is just one person, right? That's the framing that they're trying to brainwash all of you with. So anyways, that's why I continue to talk about it, because you're going to see them sell out the German farmers, and I'm sure it'll come to a very abrupt end. And before you know it, there's going to be no coverage, and you'll have forgotten about it until somebody asks you. I don't know, somebody streaming on YouTube will say, hey, what happened to those German farmers, right? So anyways, that's basically it. Voice, hey, what's up? Good to see you. And Spiral and Will, I think I gotta go, but oh, you're in Illinois. Should done last night. Yeah, yeah, I know, but I was way out in the country last night, and I didn't get back until like 1 a.m. driving back. So yeah, I'm sorry, but drive safe, Will, and hope to talk to you soon, brother. Wish you were here, because it'd be good to see you tonight. So anybody who wants to come tonight, by the way, no feds. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna have some sewer rats try to show up. Maybe not. But join the Telegram group that is pinged, or the Telegram channel that's pinged in my Twitter post about Peter being here tonight. And let's hang out and have a pint, and it'll be fun. We'll grab some food, have a pint. I don't know if there's any games on, but by the way, it's really interesting. I'm sitting at the bar with Peter. Peter McCormick is the host of What Bitcoin Did. And we're sitting at the bar in some pub in very, very rural Ontario. And there was a football game on last night. It was the 49ers and Green Bay. And so Pete is all into it. So again, I know lots of Brits, a very close friend who's British, whatever, and they all hate American football. But here is Pete, like, all into it. I'm like, wait, I thought you're supposed to call this not real football, right? Like, because they call soccer football. He's like, oh, no, man, I love it. The 49ers are my team. And he's about my age. I mean, let me guess, Joe Montana. And just, yeah, 100%. And it was very nice to see somebody from across the pond. who really enjoys American football. So good on you, Pete. Keep speaking Spiral says, speaking the truth, brother. You have a great, well, thank you, man. I'm not going to stop. I am never, ever, ever going to stop. So, I mean, not specifically on this topic. Like, there's other things to deal with in the world. But it's just funny how this protection racket, this political cartel, is everywhere. It's mind-blowing. I can't believe how many countries it's now... They have people. It's weird. I don't want to use the propaganda words that some people use. They say, oh, they're connected to whatever. It's a little bit different. It's not like it's a persuasion tactic. So they'll have somebody who is influential that will reach out to people, and so they'll say like, yeah, we're really concerned about this issue. We want to help. And then the person will have received a call from somebody quite famous, and they'll be like, oh my God, how can I help? They're like, and they'll say to them, yeah, we got to get some messaging out. Maybe we can connect you with some people who can help steer you in the right direction, and anything. Maybe we can boost. You know what? We'll do an interview together or something like that, and that help your audience as well, get the word out and stuff like that. And that's how people get captured. It's not like you're joining, our cartel. We're stamping the seal on your forehead and you're not part of it. No. It's just very kind persuasion. Yeah, we really want to help. Want to make things better and whatever. Meanwhile, they're stabbing them in the back at the same time, which is exactly what we went through in Ottawa, and it happens all over the place. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye for people using kind of the same language. There's certain people they won't talk to. We saw another grift just started, and it's so funny. Somebody sent this to me and sent me the link and said, is this another grift? And I look at the organization or all the people who are part of this little group. Every single one of them talked shit about me during the convoy. I'm like, oh yeah, that's part of the group of people that sold us out. But but people think, oh, those are the freedom fighters. No, those are the people that are working for the political establishment, and half of them don't even know. They don't understand. I guess you got to have time in politics to understand the complexity, how everything is interrelated. But anyways, it is. I want to talk about something else, something that is a source of mild frustration that I've had to deal with in the past. And again, I'm not saying this from a negative space. This is just human behavior, right? So my frustration is not with individual people. It's with kind of my inability on certain issues to reach people and trying to figure out tactfully how to reach them. And the word I want to talk about is evidence, not like in a court, right? Beth puts freedom fighters equals political cartel. Sometimes. When you see a bunch of people who are not a trucker, have political ties, and they sit in front of a keyboard and they write articles about politics and call themselves freedom fighters, they're political cartel. I mean, what freedom fighter? What does that mean? You going to go out in the street and start doing kung fu with some random liberal politician? Like, what freedom fighter? So frustrating. Like, yeah, during a protest, like we had at the convoy, yeah, it's just kind of a funny meme. I didn't really like it, to be entirely honest, because of the word fighter. You saw how negative they turned on Trump just for using, go fight peacefully. Oh, he's an act of violence. So I was not a big fan of that word, and I made that very clear, which is why I guess they tried to use that to get us into trouble. Because remember, it's always about selling us out and getting the truckers and the protesters into trouble. But anyways, back to evidence. Somebody messaged me frantically, and I don't want to get into too much detail because somebody I really trust, and it's another example of this, and trying to figure out how to reach them. But this is somebody with really, really good intentions. And but we're all susceptible to this. So they messaged me about a particular political issue about somebody and whatever. Okay, nothing to do with Canada, by the way. And so I gave kind of a short version of kind of the backdrop of what's going on and explaining who's who, because in all these things, Scott talks about this a lot. You have to understand who the players are first. Once you understand who the players are, then everything makes sense, right? So I explained what's going on, and this was somebody who's emotionally tied to an issue and a topic around freedom and safety and very rationalized. Like, I can understand why. But this person slipped into a form of cognitive dissonance, right? Just into denialism. Like, well, it doesn't really matter. And I'm like, no, it does matter. This is quite dangerous. And I explained it in more detail and tried to go, you don't want to go too many deviations into, I don't like the term rabbit hole, but into the details, because it gets a little bit complex, especially when somebody is having cognitive dissonance around their emotional ideas being challenged, which is what this is about. You can't push too much, right? Especially when you like people, right? But he professed on, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And then he says, and I've dealt this with many times with previous podcasts I've dealt with, so it's not unique to him. It's just how we all behave. I'm sure I behave this way too. He said, okay, but what's the evidence? There's your tell. This had happened so many times on so many different topics that we covered in podcasts and whatever. When people very, very senior, when these issues got on their radar and they didn't want to deal with it, and politicians do this all the time, or the political class does, they do well, where's the evidence? Like, okay, firstly, they don't understand evidence. Secondly, they're going to use it probably, and I know of a few cases, where they're just going to use it to create an excuse narrative so they'll further not have to deal with the issue. That's what politicians do. But I want to explore this whole idea of they don't understand the evidence. And this is not to any individual. Well, many of us. I ended up learning this while producing a podcast. I didn't know either how all of this works. So, let's take the example of, I don't know, organized crime or international crime, something like that, right? People think, and I guess it's because of the movies. Is it, I don't know, if it's Matlock or movies or fake, legal movies that have trials in them. Like when you watch a movie and you watch a trial, that's fake. That's part of why I produce Not on Record, to show you, to listen to a lawyer explain what's going on in the legal process, because it's all about process, right? But that's not covered. All that stuff is glossed over in a movie, and it's just sensationalized. And what's really funny is in movies, in general, not just in legal movies, but they're always building up to the eureka moment. The aha, see? Look, your signature's on this piece of paper. Therefore, you're a kingpin of the mafia. That's not how life works. That's not how the legal system works. That's not how court works. In some, maybe in tax court or something like that, in some theaters, yes. But for the most part, it's always patterns of behavior. So you get enough data points, now you can establish a pattern of behavior. Now you can say, this is my evidence, right? This is, and I'm using this when I'm putting together and mapping out the political cartel. I see subject one talks to this person, talks to that person, throws me under the bus, puts forward this fake narrative, has been at events with this person who's also part of the political cartel, and you can all map it out. And then I can say, okay, here's this subject. I can give you 15 data points that this person is either an activist or on payroll of the political cartel or of TBOF or of the Strong and Free Network, who funds a lot of this stuff. Because look, I got 10 data points that shows this person is actively involved in this group. So that's how evidence works, right? It's not one piece of paper that shows everything. It's this whole pattern. And it's amazing how many people don't understand it. And I guess, I didn't understand it to the extent that I understand it now. But that's why when I say ABC person is part of the political cartel, or this new person just came on my board, I put it, this new person just came on the board because I can now link them to 11 people in the political cartel that sold out the Freedom Convoy. It's because I put them on the board and then I monitor them, in passing. I see comments online, see interviews and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I can establish a pattern of behavior. And the way it works, this is what I learned when I was producing the Quicken Report. It's all put into a spreadsheet. Like their spreadsheet's too complicated for me. I mean, that's really advanced stuff. But it's interesting. You put in a subject, you start collecting your data points, and then you build multiple hypotheses, and then you try to disprove them. And the hypothesis you can't disprove, it doesn't mean with absolute certainty, because there are no certainties in life, but it's more than likely. And that's the job of the court, is you present that to a court, and the judge will review your evidence versus the other side and then say, yeah, your evidence is compelling enough that I would rule in favor that this is factual. There's no eureka moment. There's no signature. There's no membership card for the Muslim Brotherhood. That's not how it works. It's all multiple data points and patterns of behavior that show us how people are interlinked, which is exactly what's happening with the political cartels, who operate very much in the same way. So this is why it's important. I want everybody to understand what evidence is. Evidence gets submitted to in the legal structure. It's submitted to the court, and then a judge rules whether the evidence is factual or not. But this question always pops up when it's a complicated issue. The person gets rattled or slips into cognitive dissonance because they've been emotionally tied to either an issue or an outcome or a political thing. So they're emotionally invested in it. And then I come along and say, sorry, this is actually what's going on, and it undoes it, and it also is a cause for concern. That's another part. When it's something you should be scared about, it's very easy because all of us, want to pretend bad things aren't happening, and so they'll gravitate to, well, show me the evidence. It's like, well, you won't understand it because it requires multiple data points, and you're going to say, yeah, but where's his signature? You know how many times I dealt with this? and sometimes with big decision makers, right? And they too would slip into this cognitive dissonance and say, look, you got a stack of papers that shows all of this, how everything is worked, how it's interlinked. Yeah, but I don't see a signature on it. Well, I'm sorry, it's not a credit card application. That's not how this works. So we have to get over this overly simplified view of how the world works and understand the world's a little bit complex. It's a little bit murky sometimes. There's very few absolutes. Everything is probabilities. And but it's a common thing when people are emotionally involved in something and someone comes along with something that undoes everything. That person will slip in, well, show me the evidence. And then the other thing is, somebody will say, well, show me the evidence. Okay, well, here's some evidence. And what will they do? I don't believe your data. Doesn't matter. Here's a picture of the two together. Here's them here. Here's the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't believe your evidence, right? You see that from all the activists on the opposite side of you politically. They do the same thing. That's why I keep saying over and over again, and I've told people many times in politics they don't listen, the facts don't matter. This is why the facts don't matter. Because when we slip into cognitive dissonance because we're emotionally invested in something, we are subconsciously going to try to do everything we can to undermine anything that is shown to us as proof. Even if it is factual and verifiable, most of us, the NPCs, no matter what, and we all are subject to being in an NPC state sometimes, by the way. It doesn't matter. We're always going to, if we're tied to something as to a high degree of emotional investment, doesn't matter what you show them. You can show them right in their face. You can show them a video of somebody committing an act. Well, I don't believe it. That is called brainwashing. And that's what your political class is doing to all of you. This is why they go on smear and whisper campaigns online about, I'm not the only one, many of us, because these are tactics to brainwash you and to put you in a group an assigned group. And in the case of politics, it's a politically assigned group. You're either a supporter or the opposition, and they want to get everybody out of being swing voters and push them into one of two camps, supporter or opposition, because that way they'll know how. It's called GOTV, get out the vote strategy. But it's gone way crazier than it's ever been into behavioral economics now, to the point that it's so dependent on emotional and psychological manipulation, which is why the media does what it does to you. That's why they lie to you. When they say, show me the evidence, they mean, show me the money. That sometimes happens too. That's a different type of negotiation and conversation, for sure. That's a lot of that. Well, brother, you're a wise beyond your years, and I always appreciate you, man. I wish you're not going to be around. Any chance you're going to be around the Toronto area tonight? Come on, hang out with Pete. He wants to meet as many Bitcoiners as possible, and I'm going to be posting the venue later on in a few hours. So if you can't be there, you will be missed, and you'll be there in spirit, I hope. All right, all of this we're gonna do today's a little bit shorter, but all of this stuff is, we all get a little. How do we want to say? We got a little overwhelmed with so much information being sent to us, and we get information overload, and that's a big part of, I think, what causes us to slip into anxiety and negativity. And as you know, that's why I always want to build this space so we can talk about these negative things, but also look at the world through a positive frame. Now, I don't know about you. I'm looking at everything that's going on in the world, and I'm thinking, things are getting so much better. They really are. I mean, look at the things you couldn't talk about 2 years ago, or you would get aggressively attacked by people in your work or your neighborhood, your business, your family, right? The issues around jihad terrorism, the transgender issue, all these hot button issues. On the other side, the abortion issue, whatever. All these hot button issues that if you talked incorrectly about them, you would be outcast, right? This is the whole idea of cancel culture. But aren't you seeing people across the board are fed up with the cancel culture? I've had, I talked about this in my last stream, but I've been having so many conversations with people across the political spectrum, political philosophical spectrum, people who have very different views than I do, but we talk to each other in a way we can understand each other, right? And instead of attacking each other, just kind of like, I disagree, but my needs in life are different than yours right now, so that would make sense why we disagree, like those sorts of things. I'm having a lot of those conversations. So for me, there's all of these signs going on of why we should be positive. And a perfect example, this was great. Most of you know I'm a car nut. And our entire lives, we're hearing about the flying car, right? It's never going to happen. And then you heard Trump say last year, I think, or a year before that, he wants to build a city that has all the latest technology, including flying cars. And some people dismiss it, he's crazy, he's up in the air. It's like, no. It's called a cyclorotor. You know what a cyclorotor is? It's the key to a flying car. It's essentially a rotor that replaces tires, but they're more elongated, kind of like a drone, like a DJI drone. But instead of a helicopter, they're rotors that are mounted sideways, but they're encapsulated, like on the ends, so it looks like there's a car rim attached to it. And there are 4 rotors or wings, airfoils, whatever you want to call it, that are within it that rotate, and it gives enough pressure or enough thrust to achieve lift. Now, why didn't we have this before? Well, because there were limitations in material science, and there were required advancements in computer processing power. But guess what? We've now hit the threshold of computer processing power and material science that we can actually build functional cyclorotors. And you attach those to a body of what looks like a car, you now have a flying car. Go check it out on YouTube. You'll see all these videos about cyclorotors. It's absolutely amazing. There's so much good that's about to happen. I've been spending a lot of time, when I have the little bit of free time that I have, learning AI and all these different AI tools. I mentioned this before. I mean, it's amazing. It's the things that I can now do that I couldn't do 2 years ago is just shocking. It goes back to James Burke's thesis in Connections on the positive acceleration of change becomes exponential, and we're living in that era right now. These are all amazing things. They're so good. Like, I can't believe how much optimism I have. That's on top of Bitcoin and, the more freedom-minded, the pendulum in global politics is shifting towards freedom and individualism, and that's was highlighted by Millet's speech at the World Economic Forum. And you watch the World Economic Forum. They're a bunch of opportunists. I'm telling you, they are going to change. They're going to pivot. Don't think they're the ideologues that they are. They're about money. And when they see that the money is not with collectivism and communism anymore, and that there's money around libertarianism, they're going to pivot. Every politician pivots. They always #follow the money. So, I mean, it might seem like things are a little bit rocky, and I think I know why. I think it was, I can't remember the exact number. I heard this in a podcast I was listening to in a truck, but in 2024, I think, it could be wrong with the numbers, but it was approximately this. Approximately 65% of the world's democracies are having national elections. So of course, think about that. 65% of the world's democracies, developing world, whatever you want to developed world, whatever you want to talk about it, and some developing. 65% of them are having national elections. What happens during the election season? Well, the world's going to chaos, right? Because one side has to demean the other side. So it's all political narratives telling us the world is going to collapse unless you vote for us. And you hear that on both sides. So I think that's why we get the perception that things are bad and that they're negative, but they're really way better than they are. That's why when you go out, as much as you see chaos on, I don't know, Twitter, whatever social media you use, Facebook, whatever, everything seems like it's falling apart. But when you go outside, you go down the street to the local coffee shops, like, oh, wait, everything's cool. Everybody's hanging around. A bunch of people with different political ideas are hanging out because it's all artificial. It's all these narratives. It's all these brainwashing to try to get you to have certain political opinions that you may or may not agree with. So if in 2024, 65% of the world's democracies are going to have elections, you know what's not going to happen in 2025? 65% of the world's democracies will not be having elections in 2025. It's just a weird time where so many things are lining up. So I think it's going to feel a little bit rough, right? It's going to feel that, at least from the rhetoric that you see online. But I don't think it's going to feel like that in your regular everyday life, especially with all these amazing things going on where people are not afraid to talk about spicy topics anymore. People are more free for more free speech. Cyclorotor. Tesla has that robot coming out in supposed to be this year, but they're always 5 years late for everything. But whatever. It's called Optimus or Optimus Prime or something like that. That half of you will be like, oh, I don't need that, and I get that. But whatever, just advances in technology that are very interesting, right? Those are all things for positive change. So it's interesting that we're in a state where, from my perspective, we should be at our maximum positivity because there's so much good on the horizon. Yet so many people have a negative framing, right? Beth says, elections mean optimism, change of leadership, hope for the future. Canada, too, needs to have an election in 2024. Yes. Okay. So there's 2 points on that. Firstly, when the Conservatives get elected, you're going to feel like there's massive change, but things are going to just keep going on the same. I'm sure they'll introduce some policies that will pull back on some of the craziness, the extreme craziness from Trudeau, and hopefully they'll open up the oil sector in Western Canada. That will be a big economic boom to us, so that would be great. But remember, it's going to be like Doug Ford, right? Doug Ford, the guy who sought an injunction to freeze your donations for the Freedom Convoy. A conservative did that, okay? Let's not forget that. That's why they attack me. That's why I say it all the time. They can go fuck themselves. So it was Doug Ford, the conservative, that sought the injunction against us. You think the federal conservatives are going to be any different? No, conservatives do what the liberals do at the speed limit. But I have a plan for them. But they have to get elected first. And from what I see, they are already canvassing. So the federal conservatives are already knocking on doors and canvassing for the next election. You know what that means in politics? That means we're having an election in 2024. My prediction is the beginning of November. Election season is always after Labor Day. They'll call an election in the end of September after people are back in school and they think they're paying attention to the legacy media because they're addicted to legacy media. They'll call an election, I don't know, September, let's say 25th, whatever it is. And we will have an election 30 days later. And that's it. So beginning of November, end of October. Give me a couple of weeks here or there. And because you know why? The other thing is, so the reason they did the 2025 deal was because Jack Mead wants his pension. Because he I shouldn't say it that way. A pejorative for people who can't work for themselves, right? The word whore was in there. But anyways, so Jack Mead is a whore, and he's a scumbag. He just wants his pension. It's all he cares about, his pension, because he didn't get a pension. There's no pension on the provincial level in Ontario. So I guess the Liberals worked out a deal with them and said, yeah, we'll support each other until the 2025 when we have to have an election, and you'll get your pension. But there's one thing I know about politicians, or the political class as it works in Canada, and you saw with the convoy as an example. They all stab each other in the back. I'm willing to bet we will have an election and they will time it so that they'll have an election and Jack Mead can't get his pension just to stick it in his eye. Those are the type of psychopaths that are in politics. Those are the ones who are not elected, who are behind the scenes, who call the shots. So that leads me to believe we're going to have an election before the end of the year. I could be wrong, but if conservatives are knocking on doors now, that means they know everyone has decided there's going to be an election in 2024. So another sign for hope? Yeah, I guess so. But things don't change with one politician or one election. They change when the culture changes, which is what we're going to do here. And it's going to take some time, but we'll do it. And things are going to get much better, I promise. There's always problems in life, but sometimes it feels chaotic when it's not. And you know what? Everything always works out. We're all adaptable. We can all deal with the bumps in the road. But I think we are headed towards a new enlightenment period. They want time with TDS. Guess what? Well, that's the other thing. I mean, there's many reasons they're going to have an election in this fall, because if they have the Trump election is going to be in November. There's no doubt Trump is going to be the nominee. So the way the Liberals are going to campaign here is, oh, you can't vote for Pierre Poilievre because he's Trump. So you're going to have Trump and Trump, which is the complete opposite. But they'll try to brainwash their base of support and Canadians into believing that. Beth says, we need a Canadian Millet to run our province and our country. That is coming down the pipeline. That's where we're going. It's going to take us a generation to get there, maybe 10 years. But that's where every bankrupt democracy will have to go. Now, will Canada try to hold on to this pseudo-socialism garbage like Argentina did for 70, 80 years? I don't think so. It's possible, but I think the rate of change over the last century was way slower than the rate of change in the age of technology. So 70 years can be covered in 2 years now. So I don't think we're going to hold on for as long as Argentina did to have Millet-type ideas and even the rhetoric. And that's why I push them. I don't care what they think. I could care less. That's why I call them a bunch of a-holes. That's what they are. I don't care if they like it or not. It is what it is. So we will get there, I promise you. It's just going to take time. It's going to take time. On that, I have to run. And Beth, thank you for all the calls. You're so wonderful. All of you. And Voice and Spiral and Will and everybody else. If you're in Toronto, come hang out. It's Bitcoin. Peter McCormick's in town. We're going to hang around, have some grub at the pub, have a couple of pints, and just hang out and chill. Pretty casual. Be a lot of fun. And go to my Twitter. Click on the Telegram link, because I will post the details in that Telegram link once I get confirmation, which I should have by 3 p.m. Today, or in or about 3 p.m. today. And let's go have some fun. All right, so be good. I love you all, and be good to people that you meet today. And if you run into some strangers, be kind to them, because remember, your subconscious is always watching.